Oklahoma going to Columbia. It's an early morning game for South Carolina, but I talked about this yesterday on my South Carolina show. This is probably going to be a must-win for South Carolina from here on out. I thought last week you had opportunities to win that football game. You were gifted opportunities. You forced 3 turnovers, but you couldn't do anything on offense. You got to the opposite side of the 50 16 times, I think, in the second half alone, and you only came away with 3 points. You can't have that going up against an Oklahoma defense, which, in my opinion, this is the best front four that South Carolina is going to play all year. I know a lot of people talked high about LSU's front four last week, but they don't have the amount of depth that Oklahoma has compared to. So if you're Shane Beamer and company, you just fired Lonnie Teasley this week. Sean Elliott's your new O-line coach. I don't expect night and day improvement from the South Carolina offensive line. But what are you looking for? Looking to see at least on the side of South Carolina's offense that maybe you haven't seen much of this year?
Well, the offensive line stinks. They have no run game to speak of. If I'm Mike Shula, I got to somehow get Lenore Sellers out in space. So I don't know if you have some rollouts, some bootlegs, something to get him out in space to move around. And the problem is they don't have any pass catchers they can trust or rely on. Nick Harbor's just been okay. They really missed Josh Simon from a year ago. The piece they're missing the most is Rocket Sanders. I mean, talk about one of the most underrated pieces last year. He really helped that offense go and open it up. But if we're just talking realistic for South Carolina, like realistic expectations the rest of the way, to me, 6-6 should be the goal at this point. I know they came in with high hopes of playoffs. And look, if they could run the table, playoffs still possible, but I don't think they're going to run the table. I'd say 6-6. You're at 3 wins right now. I think they'll beat Coastal Carolina. I think they're going to have a great chance to beat Clemson the last week of the season because they're down. But that means you got to find me one more win. And of these, after this game against number 14 Oklahoma, it's number 6 Alabama, number 5 Ole Miss, and number 4 A&M. 3 top 10 teams. So this is your best chance at the hypothetical 6th win is against Oklahoma at home. So you're right. This is an important game, almost a must win for South Carolina. If they lose this one, they may lose the next 4. And you're talking about a 5-7, potential 5-7 finish. That's if you beat Clemson. Shane Beamer very much, I don't know if I say hot seat, but a lot of questions being asked around the program of, is this where we're headed? We just had a generational quarterback. Like Norris Sellers is still being talked about going number 1 or, top 10 in the draft next year in the NFL draft. So you're going to tell me you just had a top 10 draft pick at quarterback and you went 5-7? That to me is very incriminating on the supporting cast. What did you do to add talent around him? And I said that all offseason. I was shocked they didn't go out in the portal and try to add some big time wide receiver help with some of that money, that NIL money. But you're right. Important game for South Carolina. An important game for Oklahoma. They got to bounce back from the loss to Texas where John Mateer had his worst career game in college.
If I'm Oklahoma, I'm not playing John Mateer this week. He's not healthy. He rushed his surgery. He rushed to get back on the field. He wasn't ready to play last week. If you see him start to struggle early on in the game, I do expect for Ben Arbuckle to put Mike Hawkins Jr. in because realistically, you want to preserve the health of your quarterback through the rest of the year because now you're expected on a deep playoff run. You've had a lot of people commend you for the first 5 games of the season and seeing how John Mateer was playing. Man, he's playing like a Heisman contender. Early favorite for the Heisman Trophy. He gets hurt. And you saw what happened last week. He rushed to get back onto the field, and he made mistakes. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket. Most of the throws that he made, horrible decision-making. And most of that was because he panicked. And going up against a South Carolina front four that's going to get after you. Chris, you mentioned Lenore Sellers and how he could potentially leave after this year. You haven't even mentioned what could happen if they go 5-7. You're going to see guys enter the portal, guys like J.R. Johnson that could be gone. You may see guys like Dylan Stewart that could be gone. A lot of money that you spent to retain these guys from last year, they could be hitting the portal because of the lack of success and the lack of a market that is in South Carolina. They're going to go someplace where they can go contend for a championship. They can go be developed at a higher rate. and potentially go earn some more money along the way as well.
Yeah, and you're starting to see that now. A lot of guys that have played in 4 games this season go on that route, saying, "You know what? I'm done. I'm going to opt out the rest of the season and preserve a red shirt and hit the portal and be somewhere else next year." Not South Carolina, but you're seeing that at a couple of schools. Texas had a couple guys do that. So, yeah, we're going to see. That's why I say it's such a big game for both sides. For Oklahoma, knowing what's ahead for them, the schedule is brutal. So that's what I say. Like, this is an important game for both sides. This is an important game for Oklahoma to still have the playoff hopes that they do. They have to beat South Carolina. You can't take a second loss here. But for South Carolina's sake, you lose a 4th game here. Like I said, a lot of question marks around Shane Beamer's future, especially with all the tough games that are coming up. So, yeah, look, I think Mateer, I'm with you. I thought he shouldn't have played. Hindsight's always 2020. He did not look healthy. They're saying he was healthy. He just wasn't there mentally, that he was making all the wrong mistakes. Okay, that's fine. Either way, he sucked. So I do think we're going to see a much better Mateer this week against South Carolina.
You know, I want to see this running back room kind of for Oklahoma specifically. I want to see them mix it up with guys like Torrey Blaylock and Taylor Tatum. Get John Mateer on the run if he is to play. Or even if he isn't, Mike Hawkins Jr. can run too. He's saw a little bit of that against Kent State. You saw a little bit of that last week or last year, and you saw Oklahoma have some success because of it. And Blaylock, in my opinion, is going to be one of your X factors. He's not really talked about a whole lot, and the guy averaging close to 5 yards a carry, can get out in space, make men miss. He's, in my opinion, more of your red zone back. And so when you get into that area, you better be looking out for number 6 when it's all said and done. I think Deion Burks, when it's all also is a guy that he's just been having one of those seasons that he's just gone so highly under the radar, and people will forget how highly sought after he was in the portal last year coming from Purdue. You saw what he did last year, even with a bad offense, and you see what he's doing with some consistency. He's finally getting the football more. Ben Arbuckle is utilizing him like he's done in past, which is getting your athletes the football, getting him on the reverses, pop passes, screens, quick outs. That's something that I want to see more from Oklahoma, more of that creativity. I do think you adjust your game plan for a guy like John Mateer because you're going to get him into 2- and 3-step dropbacks, and you're going to get the football out of his hands quickly.
Yeah, and you mentioned Blaylock. He's been okay. Would like to see some more consistency there. But how about the big fat dud of the offseason? I mean, everybody thought Jaden Ott was going to be a home run signing, and he is, they say he's not been 100% healthy, but I mean, he had 1 carry for 2 yards against Texas. This was coming on the heels. He had 11 carries, a season high against Kent State, and everybody's going, "Oh, I think he's finally there. He's finally healthy." Nothing in the Texas game. So, Jaden Ott's the one to keep an eye on. Like, does he ever get fully healthy? Do we ever see the guy that he was supposed to be, one of the top NIL signings of the offseason?
So this is what Ben Arbuckle said in his press conference. He says, Torrey has been consistent all year. It's not necessarily anything that Jaden Ott is doing wrong. It's what a lot of other guys are doing right. So maybe the injury bug has to be a factor in there, but
it's BS because nobody else is crushing it. So it's Ott's talent. Ott's the most talented. If he's not playing, it is something Ott's doing personally. He's not playing well.
I think the injury bug is still bothering him as well. I mean, here's a guy that coming from Cal 2 years ago probably was going to be the number 1 back. I had him going as the number 1 back in 25 in the 24 preseason. Then he gets hurt, doesn't perform well, and then you see what he's doing now, and it just feels like he's just being underutilized. But biggest thing that I'm excited to see is Oklahoma's front 5 going up against this pass rush of South Carolina. Gave up 5 sacks last week to Texas. Going up against the South Carolina pass rush. They're not Texas, but they can still get after the quarterback. Guys like Brian Thomas, guys like Dylan Stewart, you got to improve in the interior. Guys like Nick Barrett has kind of showed out a little bit, but still going to be an interesting matchup out in Columbia.